Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Before we meet today's guest, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director, and I have no problem recommending them to you. So take the next 3 minutes. Don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us as we give them their shout out. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply tell your school's most compelling stories. Vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. Vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com, change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided them that allowed them to coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo. See their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Make sure you visit them today. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but if you go to hometownticketing.com, their team is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution for your school. Hometown is more support, more security, and more customization. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and they got little, if any, return? Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Coaches loved it. Parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can also check out their other platforms like FanX, Snap Sponsor, Snap Store. You'll find it all at snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Home Campus, the exclusive high school and state association management platform. It's also your one-stop for things like scheduling, all the things that go into student athlete eligibility and clearance, rosters, uploading forms, contacting parents and coaches. Home Campus is something you're going to use every single day. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We'd like to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to help you create world-class marketing content to help you celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college athletic programs. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you. It's going to connect you to the parents you already hear from that want to gripe about everything, but it's also going to connect you to the 98% that you typically don't hear from that supports your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with that frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying close to home today. We're just going across that border into Georgia. We're actually going to be visiting with an old friend. Our guest today is Phil Duplantis. He's the athletic director for the Thomas County school system. That's in Thomasville, Georgia. Longtime coach and at a lot of different levels. We're going to hear about that. But he was on one of our Tech Tuesdays a while back talking about how their school uses the Huddle streaming device. So I'm sure he's going to work that in a little bit. But Phil, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking your time as well. I mean, it's the holidays, but as we know in athletics, there is no downtime, right? So I was in the office this morning talking about ordering championship rings, and I was talking about getting contracts out for the next 2-year cycle for football. So, but it's all good things right now. We're very blessed to be where we are right now.
Well, ordering championship rings, that's a problem that I think many athletic directors would want to have. For our listeners, recording this on December 27th, so it is, hopefully that holiday break for you. Phil, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Phil Duplantis origin story?
Well, I was born actually in Louisiana. That's why my name is the way it is. It's French. And in sixth grade, I moved to Valdosta, Georgia, and I played for the legendary Nick Hyder and played in 2 state championship games, won one, lost one. Then I went on to play at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. I was a 4-year starter there, and believe it or not, I played left tackle. I used to be slightly bigger than I am now. And then I moved on. I was lucky enough to get a graduate assistantship in strength and conditioning under Nick Saban at LSU. I got a master's degree from LSU. Then I went and taught at the University of Southern Mississippi and got my PhD there. And I was planning on being a college professor, right? Like that was my plan. And it just so happened that my best friend was coaching at a high school in Georgia while I was driving through for another interview. And I took the high school coaching job rather than the college job. And I've been in public school coaching and teaching ever since. And spent a majority of my career in Metro Atlanta. I think I was at 5 or 6 schools. I've also taught some adjunct work with my PhD in sport management. I also taught some ex-phys classes and just basic fitness classes as well. And the majority of my workload has been in the strength and conditioning field because that's what I originally did. And then I transitioned into this athletic director role. It'll be 3 years in February. And there's been a lot of, when you jump from one to the other, you think you got one of them figured out, and the learning curve at times can be quite steep, but we've got some great people we work with here, and I've got a great support, so we're thankful.
Yeah, I want you to take us on that journey through your career, but I want to go back to those high school days growing up. I'm a little bit older than you, but I think we're close to that similar generation. What was it like for you back in high school? Big town, small town. Tell us a little bit about that.
Valdosta, when it's a lot bigger now than it was. I think it was probably about 40 or 50,000 people. There were 2 schools. There was Lowndes and Valdosta. I was a city guy. I went to the city school, and Valdosta was unbelievably dominant in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I think in the 90s we played in 4 or 5 state championships and won 3 of them. And I was a part of the 92 group, and then I was a part of the 94 group that lost it. And it was special. High school football is special. The relationships that you build. As a matter of fact, I was with one of my high school teammates yesterday who's also a coach. I went over to his mom's house while I was visiting my family, and to be a part of the Valdosta program and their rich history was an honor, and when you're under a guy like Nick Hyder, who had won, I think, 8 state championships and over 300 games, you're able to be under greatness, and then on top of that, I went off in college, and then I got to GA under Nick Saban, and so there's not a lot of people that can say they were under 2 really great Nicks, Nick Hyder and Nick Saban, and so that was a really cool experience on both fronts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of books there. As a lineman, I'm going to guess you might have wrestled, maybe done some track. Any other sports when you're in high school?
Yeah, well, I was, believe it or not, I was track and basketball.
Oh, okay.
And the wrestling, it's funny because one of my sons wrestles now, and I'll be honest with you, I thought it was a little too tough for me. I mean, I saw my football teammates wrestling. I was like, I don't know if I want that. So I played basketball up until the 10th grade and excuse me, the ninth grade, and then I did track as for a couple of years as well. But we were going so deep in the playoffs, it was really hard for me to flip into the next season. And I was not uber talented in either one of those. My dad was a track coach, so I did track, and I liked to play basketball, but I wasn't very good. And I thought to myself, I think maybe I can play in college, so maybe I should just focus a little bit more on that. And also I don't know how everybody ran their stuff in the 90s, but when we were at Valdosta, we did 6 a.m. workouts 5 days a week from January to June. And so it was quite a rigorous off season for us. And so, we ran for 45 minutes every day, lifted for an hour and 15 minutes, then came back in the afternoon and did another lifting session. So we were really good physically there as far as strength. That's where my strength base came from. Like, I was stronger than almost everybody when I walked on campus at Samford, just because of that factor right there. I came from a great high school program.
I'm going to guess that had something to do with those state championships. Yeah, very much a
We were a pretty
college
talented
background.
group.
I know just what you're talking about for wrestling. Our high school in the opposite corner of the country had a very successful high school wrestling program. I wanted no part of that. I was a skinny wide receiver, so yeah, I played basketball and then was a hurdler and jumper and track. So I know just where you're coming from, Phil. For our listeners, our guest today is Phil Duplantis. He's the athletic director for the Thomas County school system. That's in Thomasville, Georgia. We're going to hear some more, but let's take our first break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Don't worry, we're coming back with more. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or simply share the diverse history and all the magic moments of your high school's history. Like I said, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. If you mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, they just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids up to their highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school.
Jake, we use two of your sponsors who've been really, really good for us. One obviously is Huddle. I have a great relationship with Huddle, but also Snap. We've used them in multiple sports throughout the last couple years to raise funds, and it's been phenomenal. And it's just like Huddle. Snap, they do everything for you, so it's really, really user friendly. And it's an easy way to be able to generate revenue, because now the way that the world works, everybody wants it to be instantaneous. So they would rather do it right then than have to worry about picking up a fruit cake or a barbecue or something like that, where your margins aren't as good. So, man, if I could tell anybody, and then I looked on it and it said Huddle only had 8 million users. A lot of people are missing out. Because I'm telling you, I don't know how we would do our jobs as coaches or be able to get the analytics that we get without Huddle. And also I would say anybody, and I was in New Orleans this past weekend talking to one of my friends who's a head football coach down there. and they hadn't even heard of Snap. And I was like, man, y'all got to get on that. That's a great, I mean, there's no exchange. They come in, they set everything up, you raise revenue, and then a month later you get a check and everybody's happy.
Boy, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I know our friends at Huddle and Snap do too. We're going to do a shout out to Snap later on, but you're absolutely right. They literally do it all for you. And as far as Huddle, I mentioned that our coaches loved it. I was kind of worried that would it transfer to volleyball and basketball and soccer. And again, I'd love to walk into our gym and see our volleyball coaches and our basketball coaches with their cell phone, programming the camera to cover practice or whatever. So thanks for doing that.
Yes, sir.
All right. You mentioned earlier, a little bit of your journey. I want to dive into that a little bit deeper. Talk about, and again, for our listeners, you've been, a head football coach, you worked at the middle school level, you've been in charge of strength and conditioning, and now you're the athletic director, very successful program. Talk a little bit about that transition from coach to AD, what I call going to the other side of the desk. How did that all play out?
Well, we had a transition. Our athletic director took another job somewhere, and they needed somebody to fill the role, and I volunteered, at first when you're just a coach, you're kind of localized, and I don't mean it just a coach, but you're doing one thing, working with one set of people, right? Well, when you do the athletic director, you're more of a bigger umbrella, right? You're involved a lot more. So basically the first 6 months, we're trying to figure how do I communicate with coaches on a daily basis? How do I know how my teams are doing? How do I lay out my schedule on a daily basis? Now, during that transition, I was able to have two people. I have an assistant as well as a scheduler, and they are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they are very hands-on, and they take the ball and they run with it. So there's some of these things that I don't have to deal with, and I think that that's most important. If you're going to be an athletic director, whether it's an assistant AD or somebody, you're going to need somebody that's going to be willing to try to make as many decisions as possible, taking care of stuff right off the bat so it doesn't catch you when you're doing all the other things. Because I'm covering every game. I'm picking up money boxes. I'm dumping money. I'm meeting with parents. I'm checking on kids. We're talking about eligibility or getting kids eligible. So when you have the scheduling has been key and unbelievable. And like my assistant, she does stuff like set up Letterman jacket signings, and she takes care of all of our social media so that I can focus on the people end of it. And for example, I'm going to talk to my head coaches that are in season most of the time, every single day, face to face. I want to know what's going on in your program. I want to know how I can help you. And I want to know what you need help with or what things are going well or not well. And also, I'm there to be an encourager. These people that I'm working with are professionals. They do a phenomenal job, and I want to support them as best I can. But that also comes with our administration. We've got a wonderful principal. Our assistant principals are phenomenal. Our school board is super supportive of athletics, as well as our CFO and our superintendent. And because of that, my job is very enjoyable, and it's wonderful to be in a community where athletics is so important, and it's just ingrained. And I said this when I first came here. I had been in Metro Atlanta, and you would go to your sport, but you wouldn't go to probably a lot of other sports. And now our fans go to every sport. The same people you see at football, you see at baseball, you see at basketball, and all the coaches. Like our football coaches come to almost every home basketball game, and then in the spring, and our baseball players are phenomenal. They go to every athletic events. We have a great student section. They work really hard at being able to support the other athletes. So there's a real camaraderie within the athletic department between the athletes and supporting them.
You covered so many what we would call best practices. You talked about communication, meeting with your coaches on a daily basis. You talked about you've created, or it's there and you've nurtured it to be even better, a culture where the students, the coaches, the fans, support all the programs. And it doesn't sound like your coaches are suffering from silo disease, where they're just in their own silo and ignoring the other programs. That can be a challenge for, let's say, a young AD or a new AD. We're going to get into some leadership best practices, but since you kicked open the door, um, what's something real quick that you either developed, or, as I said, you have nurtured at your school since you came on board, that you think is something that, let's say, a new AD in a small school that might not have the resources that you or I had at my school, what's something that they could do to help develop and build that type of culture?
I think it's one-on-one conversations. But it's not just a simple conversation of how you're doing. It's making sure that you are a servant leader and you're asking them how I can help you to be better. What do you need help with? I mean, you're going to see me on a Thursday afternoon at a JV game filling up coolers. You're going to see me running around trying to take care of stuff or talk to officials or being a proper game manager. Those are the type of things that when you do that and you establish relationships, they understand that you are there to help them. And that's huge, because you don't want, I think sometimes when you're in a leadership position, people think you're just looking over them to see what they're doing wrong. And simply, that's not what I do. I have given these people the opportunity to be a head coach or an assistant coach, and I want them to do the best that they possibly can, and I want to help. And when you come from that vantage point, it makes my job a lot easier. When I go in, if you talk to your coach every day face to face, or sometimes it may be every other day, but when you do that, they know you're not just there to tell you they're doing something wrong. You're there to check in with them. How's the team? How's the chemistry? How do you feel about today? All of that type of stuff.
Yeah, again, you're absolutely right. The communication, and through that communication, you're building those relationships. I didn't invent this. I stole it from another AD, but I wish I would have stolen it much earlier in my career. The best thing that I ever did as an athletic director, I'd been hired at a new school, very successful school, but there might have been some silos in there. Um, over the summer when I got there, I sent out an email to every single coach, middle school, JV, head coach. And I said, hey, excited to be here. Want to get to know you. Come in my office this summer, and let's chat. And almost every single coach did come in. We had like 80 some coaches. And the very first thing I said to them was, how can I make your job more fun? What can I do to help you? And we had some Hall of Fame coaches, multi-state championship coaches, and they said, later on, they go, nobody ever asked us that, and that created so much, I guess, early credibility. Now I had to follow up with that, but it was just so simple, but so important, so critical. Phil, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but I want to do it now. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, and listeners, I'm telling you, you have a tremendous resource here. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
You can just email me. My email is pduplantis@tcjackets.net, or you can just go to the Thomas County Schools website and look under athletics, and my email and my contact information will be there. Send me an email if we need to talk. If we need to talk, I'll send you my personal cell phone, and we can, we can talk further, because I know that this is a fraternity, and it's unbelievably important. It's so awesome that I can just call another guy that I met once or twice, and then I'm like, hey, what do you do about this situation? And they can help me solve it within 2 or 3 minutes, rather than trying to figure it out myself. I don't necessarily want to write a new playbook. I want to use a successful playbook that somebody else has.
No, absolutely. We talk about not reinventing the wheel, or I said it earlier, stealing those great ideas from somebody else. And that's the thing about ADs. You know this. ADs can't wait to give away that stuff. You don't have to steal it. They want you to take it. Let's go and take our next break. For our listeners, once again, we're visiting today with Phil Duplantis, the athletic director for the Thomas County School System. That's in Thomasville, Georgia. Please stay with us. We're going to be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to their website, sidelineinteractive.com, and schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets, not just for your athletic events, but for things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager. It's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap. You already heard Phil talk about how Snap works for them. Have you ever had a fundraiser at your school, spent weeks and weeks on it, and then got little, if any, return? You need to stop. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our chief financial officer loved it too, because Snap did everything and it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can also check out their other platforms like Snap Manage, Snap Store, really cool one called FanX. You'll find it all at snapraise.com. Make sure you check it out today. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Phil Duplantis from the Thomas County School System, Thomasville, Georgia. Phil, before we jump into this segment, you and I were talking off mic. Got some exciting news to share about one of your teams.
Yeah, we just completed a 15-0 football season. We won the state championship in the Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, Georgia, beating Woodward Academy. And capping off a perfect season. First state championship we won, I think, in either 23 or 26 years here. We had a great run in the 90s, and we still had good teams in between there, but we had not won the state championship. So obviously, this community is buzzing right now, and we're having a lot of fun. These young men are able to enjoy it. Phenomenal coaching staff, best coaching staff that I've ever been around. Our head coach, Justin Rogers, does a phenomenal job, all of his coordinators, assistants, and just the way he's created a culture of winning. And in the last 2 years, he's been here 2 years, he's 27-1. And has done a phenomenal job with installing offense and defense and just the culture in general. It's been really cool to be able to watch it and help out,
Oh, wow. That's just so gratifying to have your coaches and your kids and your program succeed like that. And I'm sure there's just a little bit of influence from the athletic director as well. Our listeners didn't get a chance to hear this, but you spent some time at the middle school level, which is a special level for teachers and coaches and for ADs. Can you share a little bit about how you, let's say, managed your time at the middle school level, maybe some best practices for that middle school athletic director that's listening?
Yeah. So I was coaching in high school, and my wife and I took jobs at a brand new middle school, and she was actually the athletic director and I was the head football coach. And so I worked for my wife, and that went really well. She did a phenomenal job. But I was the head coach and ran the weight room of a sixth, seventh, and eighth grade middle school program for 6 years. And I went back and ended up getting back into high school. But I spent a total of 10 years teaching weight training in middle school. And I also coach basketball and coach track as well at the middle school. But I think the one thing, you talk about best practices. I established a strength and conditioning program and ran my program exactly like a high school program runs theirs. Um, we did 7-on-7s in the summer. We practiced 3 and 4 days a week in June and July. Now, obviously, when you're a middle school, you're going to miss some of those kids. They're going to go on vacation, but it's constantly trying to keep them in the right shape. So then we get in game one, we're substantially ahead of everybody else who took all of June off. And it was a brand new school. So I built it from scratch. So there was no, we used to do it this other way, which was great because you couldn't say, well, we used to do this or we used to do that. And I just said, hey, this is how I think we're going to do it. And we were relatively successful. We had some good ball teams, great kids. I was at Piney Grove Middle School in Forsyth County, Georgia. And it was a great experience. But the one thing that I will say was when we established the weight room, and it wasn't just for football, we trained for every single sport. So those kids, a lot of times kids don't get introduced to the weight room until they're in 8th or 9th grade. We took 6th graders and, everything was slow. There wasn't any heavy weight. It was a lot of body weight exercises,
Right.
corrective stuff. And that established those guys when they went to high school. They would always comment, the high school coaches, was that my guys were always ready for the weight room and the strenuous practices in comparison to other schools there. And I was really proud of that. And I absolutely loved it. If I was still coaching middle school football, I'd be fine. I really enjoyed the kids. They're really malleable. And they're super energetic. And then also in the winter, we did speed and conditioning in the morning. So we would come in at about 6:45 and we would do an hour and 15 minutes because our school didn't start until 9 there. So we did that 3 and 4 days a week all throughout the winter. And I trained, when I did that, that was every sport as well. So your basketball players that were in scene wouldn't be in there, but like if a kid played baseball or if a kid did, another sport, they were more than welcome to come in there and get, we did plyometrics, we did flexibility, we did agility drills. We did all that stuff in our gym for about an hour and 15 minutes every day. And then we would come and we would have a weightlifting block where we would lift. So then your afternoons are completely open. So my kids were gone every day, when school was over, until spring practice, which was not only good for my schedule and my home life, but it was also good for those young kids so they could play their lacrosse and their baseball and their AAU basketball and all that type of stuff.
Right. Two things real quick. You talked about body weight exercises for middle school kids. Just having them do that, a body weight squat from a range of motion for flexibility because they're growing. It's almost a crime if you're not doing that with your middle school kids. And again, you're not putting, double 45s on a bar. They're just doing their body weight, with push-ups and pull-ups, assisted pull-ups, negative pull-ups, even single leg, lunges, walking lunges, a tremendous advantage for the kids during the middle school years. And as you mentioned, when they advance, when they go up to high school, they're ready to begin, let's say, a supervised, serious conditioning program. The other thing that you mentioned, you talked about the multiple sports. So as an AD and somebody who was involved at the middle school, now at the high school level, um, we all know that it is a best practice to encourage kids to do multiple sports, to not specialize. How does that go? How does that work in your school right now? Obviously a football powerhouse. Do you see the kids doing multiple sports? Do the coaches support that?
Yeah, our coaches are really big on multiple sports. I think you have to, when you're looking at coaches, you have to make sure that you're hiring a coach that's willing to share his athletes. If they're not willing to share their athletes, and your philosophy is sharing athletes, especially the smaller the school, you have to be able to be adaptable to that, right? And we have always had a good relationship between our coaches and sharing. And what I see is, through middle school, they're going to play 3 sports. When they get in high school, they probably play 2, and anytime you have a kid doing something competitive in the off season, it's better than just training. Like, I want my starting quarterback shooting free throws in a game, that where the game's on the line, because it makes them more competitive.
Exactly.
And I want my football kids running track or wrestling or playing basketball. We want our primary baseball kids trying to play, wide receiver on our football team. And because it just makes for a better, and it also creates an environment that everybody's more likely to support each other. Right. And that's a hard thing, I think, to do now in this day and age, because there's so much specialization. But in the end, you have to look at the percentages of kids. I would rather my sons enjoy multiple sports, right, throughout their high school career, because the likelihood of them playing in college is unbelievably low. It really is. So let them enjoy everything so that they have those memories. And also, it develops them more as an athlete. I mean, if you're just doing one sport, you're missing something out on something else.
No, you're absolutely right. You hit it on the head. Great stuff. Need to have you present more at a national level, Phil. We're going to take another break, but we're coming back with some more best practices. Again, our guest is Phil Duplantis. He's the athletic director at Thomas County Schools. That's in Thomasville, Georgia. So let's take that break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also your one-stop platform for things like scheduling, student-athlete eligibility and clearance, all the forms and uploads that go with that, working with parents, helping coaches. It's just tremendous. In fact, it's something that as an athletic director, I used every day. To find out all the things that Home Campus can do for you, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We'd also like to say thank you to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphic solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content to celebrate your program, promote your teams and your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. How simple? Even I can use it. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Phil, you mentioned that your football team just finished a great season, undefeated state champs. You're ordering championship rings, and I know you've got a lot of background in football, as I did. One of the challenges for any athletic director, and usually it'll either be football or basketball, a parent will say, regardless of what you may or may not be doing, parents will come and say, well, all you care about is football. What about my kid's sport? And I'll say that I think the vast majority of athletic directors do a great job of supporting all of the other sports, but it's just one of those things. Assuming that might have happened to you once or twice at your school, what are some things that you do to support all the other sports so that parents will be less likely to say, all you care about is football?
Well, I think it comes down to, being available to have conversations. A lot of times parents, when I have an open door policy. If you want to meet with me or you want to talk to me at a game, I have no problem having a conversation. And that doesn't mean that I'm always going to do what you want me to do, but I'm going to listen. And a lot of times parents just want to express frustration in one area or another, or sometimes they say they're really happy with something, but if you don't give people an outlet to communicate, then that's where you're going to come in with problems. And as far as, I support every athletic team as much as I possibly can. I'm at every varsity game. I'm at probably 98% of sub-varsity, ninth grade. I cover them all. So when you're there more often, they understand that you're there to support. And I think just being present is a huge thing. Um, when you're present, and again, like I said earlier, if somebody needs help setting up chairs or a concession stand or running this or running that, I'm doing it. And I think that people, sometimes when they might feel a certain way, and then I say, well, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z right now because I'm trying to support this program. I think it helps. Now, you're always going to have people that are upset about something, or they're going to be happy about something. And that's just the nature of our job. We do the best we can, how we can do it. And we do it, like for me, like I don't, this is an AD, we never have time off. Your phone, email, whatever is always available. And sometimes that can be stressful, but at the same time, it allows to solve solutions quicker then, instead of something boiling over you or somebody or something that you should have taken care of a week ago, when I can take care of it right then. And it comes down to, with parents, it comes down to communication. Our coaches need to communicate, and I speak about that often. And then I need to communicate with the parents when there's an issue that cannot be resolved by the head coach.
Yeah, and you touched on that a couple of times, the importance of communication, and I love the open door idea. We were pretty much the same way, with that one caveat. We're not gonna, it's the middle of the football game or whatever. We're not gonna talk about Billy's playing time or lack of
Right.
playing time. But yeah, those things. Let me ask you a specific area. Uniforms and coaches swag. I would occasionally have to remind one of our coaches, you've got a blue uniform, you got a white uniform, you wanted a pinstripe uniform, say baseball. We're not buying you a camouflage uniform. Okay. You don't need that. Or, the fourth polo shirt, for your sideline. What are some ways that you manage your teams on, let's say, uniform rotations or coaches swag? Anything special?
Well, not particularly. What we try to do is, I want to get 3 years out of a uniform, right? And you try to buy them every other time, so that you're not getting great costs. As far as coaches are concerned, if your kids are wearing the same stuff and they look really well dressed, I'm fine with whatever you're purchasing. But if your coaches, if your kids have one t-shirt and you've got six, that's a problem, right? And we haven't had that problem here. Our coaches are really good. Financially, we've been really good. Again, like I told you, I'm in a great place. So we haven't had to worry about a lot of that. And we've got a great booster club too. We have a sports booster club. And so there, if we need extra uniforms and there's not enough revenue, we will ask them, and they have never told me no. They're a phenomenal group of people that are just there to help the kids. That's like, our kids don't purchase their Letterman jackets. Our booster club purchases them for them.
Oh, wow.
They also purchase meals for road trips. And I'm sure that that's a common practice everywhere. But from Atlanta to here, it was different. Like, the booster club of your sport had to provide for that. We provide with the booster club everything. And we also have a touchdown club that does a phenomenal job with football. And as long as, and I always say this, budgeting, you're responsible for the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. So you've got to make sure that you have enough, if that means spending the night, because now with our travel, you may need to spend the night. It's not like the old days where you drive up and drive back now, especially with us. And I think it it's worked well for us in many of our sports when they go up the night before a game, because they're completely dialed in. There's not a lot of, they're not at home hanging out or staying out late. They're in bed early. I like it, but it's also, they have to plan, the coaches have to plan and budget for that situation to make sure that they have enough. And if that means that you better not buy that uniform at the beginning of the year if you're going to be good and you're going to make a deep run, right?
Let me ask you one more quick question here. I know Georgia is different than Florida. It's one of the things Florida coaches love to gripe about. For your coaching stipends, we and we would at the schools I was at, I think our coaches got paid above or maybe well above the Florida average. We were at a private school and we were able to do that. However, and we had teams, many of our teams, I would dare say most of our teams were advancing deep into the playoffs each year. We would tell our coaches with a smile on our face that um, if you if you make it to the state championship, we are very grateful. We love you, but there's no extra stipend for that. We expect that. And so on those years where you might not make it and you're done at the end of the season, we don't take money out of your pocket. We're still going to pay you that full stipend. And they kind of got it. What's your philosophy, or how does that work at your school? If a team makes that run to the state championship, are there bonuses? Do they get paid more, or do they get hired for this is your stipend?
No, it's just, this is your stipend. Now, as we continue to grow, is that something we would like to expand on to be able to help with that? Yeah. Now that would probably come from an outside resource like a booster club or a touchdown club or something like that. But what we would like to do in the future would be able to reward, but that has not, we have raised some of our coaching supplements. And the reason why we get coaches from Florida, honestly, is because we can pay more, right? And the quality, what we're dealing with sometimes as far as facilities and stuff like that can be better in Georgia than in some places in Florida. Now, in some places in Florida, it's perfect and it's great. I know guys that coach down there and love it. But our supplements at our school in comparison to most are very competitive. If that's the reason why we're able to retain our coaches. We try to pick the best people for those situations. I think our head coaches have done a great job at picking assistants. And typically, they have stayed because they love the community, they love the school, they love what we're doing, and they love the kids.
Yeah. No, and again, every state's different. Right now, this is where things are at in Georgia and Florida, and again, it is what it is. But appreciate you sharing that. We've got that in common with Georgia. Uh, Phil, this has been great. Spend a little bit more time with you than our first visit, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you've been in the world of coaching and athletics for a long time, but in just a second, we're going to take our last break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's take that final break. And when we return, we'll see what Phil Duplantis is going to put in his new athletic director toolbox. We'll be right back. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to your parent group and your student athletes. You already hear back from the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to help create a custom survey that'll let you take your athletic program from good to great. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Phil Duplantis from Thomas County in Georgia. He's a longtime coach, longtime AD, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Phil, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
As I've touched on, my number one would be communication. It's got to be a constant flow of information between you and parents, you and the administration, you know, and you and the coaches and you and the athletes. You know, I walk through the weight room probably 4 or 5 times a day to check on the different sports. I talk to all the coaches. I'm going to meet with my principal multiple times a day. I'm going to be in contact with my superintendent, my CFO, assistant principals. You know, it's a constant communication so that we're all on the same loop about what's going on. The second one would be organization. You have to have organization. And it's hard when you're first an AD to have it, but you have to have some semblance of it where, okay, who do you go to for this? Who do you go to for that? Who do you ask for that? What do you do for this? And I think that it's really, really important to have organization. Like, for example, like on my desk, you can't see it, but there's Post-it notes everywhere, right? About things that I'm crossing off, I'm doing, and I try to be as organized as possible. That's why, you know, I mean, and I've got tons of stuff on my phone. I constantly am taking notes so that I come back to the office and I have to do this email or that email or whatever. And then the last thing I would say was have a general routine on a daily basis. I believe in routine, right? So I come in the morning. The first thing that I do is I sit down at my desk and I take care of all of my emails. Then I go see our bookkeeper. I check everything from the night before. I sign off on any POs. I check our accounts, make sure they're good. After that, I go and meet with my principal. Then I go meet with my in-season coaches. Right. And then after that, if I need to, I go to the county office to talk to any of my administrators that I need to talk to. And then then I come back normally around between 12:30. Between that and 3 o'clock, I'm taking care of anything else organizationally that I need to take care of, where it's, okay, who's working this game? I got to get the box here. This is what time it starts. Do I need to make sure buses or whatever? Does anybody need to do anything else? And then I go straight directly to the game. And by that time, most of my work for the day is done. I'm focusing on the game, managing the game, making sure that everything's going smoothly. And I start the day over again. And that's kind of, you know, again, it's communication, organization, and routine. And I believe in routine because it makes me feel comfortable. Whenever I don't have a routine, I get all out of sorts. I don't know, well, do I do this? Do I do that? And I end up walking in circles, basically. Right. So that's why routine is important, doing the same thing every day, just about the same way.
Boy, I'm not at all surprised that you included, communication and organization. Just in our visit today, I see those being foundational pillars for you, and I love the way you phrase that routine. These are the things I'm going to do, and they just kind of lead into both of your previous ones, the communication and organization. Great stuff. One more time, Phil, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, and listeners, you got a great resource here. What's the best way that they can do that?
It would be you can email me at pduplantis@tcjackets.net. Or you can go on the Thomas County Schools in Thomasville, Georgia. You can look me up on the athletics website. My name is Philip Duplantis.
Phil, congratulations again on a great fall season, especially that state championship. All the best with the remaining 2023-2024 winter sports and on into spring sports.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor.
We're going to have to get you back again. For our listeners, we do this just about every day, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, we appreciate you listening. Come back next time for another great interview. And like I said, just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We will see you next time.